right, so we're doing this.
Always. It's 13 minutes later, and we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World of Gray podcast. In a society divided by black and white arguments, we are here to explore
the world of gray.
I'm Columbus Cougar Meat Kid Colin Cutler.
I'm the Flow Mike Chisholm. Thank you for putting up with my tardiness. I appreciate it very much. Maybe we can make it up on the back end. That's what my wife likes to say sometimes. I don't even know what that
Carrie
means.
Lee has joined us. You know, I sent an email out to my staff about tardiness. I should have CC'd you in it.
You should have CC'd me in it. Yeah, absolutely. It's tardy day.
To be fair, it's easy for me not to be late.
Is it? Because you live here?
Well, to this podcast.
Because you live here.
But I'm usually not late for anything.
No.
I like to be on time.
No.
So today we're discussing artificial intelligence.
I'm fashionably late. I many times I'm 2 to 3 minutes later than when I'm supposed to be there.
You didn't have to dress up. So we're discussing the gamut of
job interview after this.
for another podcast.
Got a job interview
for another podcast.
On Thanksgiving.
We're talking about
it's a turkey-based
artificial intelligence, and I want to know people's fears when it comes to this. Happy Thanksgiving, Carrie Lee. So Casey has joined us, or maybe she's, or maybe he. Who is this? Casey who?
Casey Bladuke, man.
He or she?
Oh, it's a he. That's a big time.
Oh,
he.
Casey.
Casey is like one of those guys. He's like a guy. When if you ever watched the show Twin Peaks, Casey
never met him
on Twin Peaks.
But I like him.
Yeah, he is a character.
We love characters.
Yeah, 100%. And he has an amazing point of view.
Well, I don't know if Casey's still here or not, but Casey put in the words of Elon Musk, we either will bond with AI or be run over by it, like an anthill in the way of the highway.
Yeah, man. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows how much unknown there is. And yet, with all of that unknown, we are marching fast and hard into the unknown fog that is AI. And it's kind of exciting in some ways. Like let's assume for a moment that the latter of Musk's quote is accurate.
Okay.
And we are run over like an anthill.
Right.
Okay. We are literally what will we compare ourselves to? What is a version of an animal or species that lives now that replaced an animal or species years ago? I wouldn't even think about that.
Hermit crab.
Well,
they didn't replace it, but they'll knock a snail right out of its shell and just take over.
Yeah, but the snail still lives. Like, I mean, I'm saying the woolly mammoth is gone now.
Is it still a snail or is it a slug now?
That's a good point. You know, humans used to be much smaller.
Right.
You know, and this new version of the human has replaced that old version of
Casey's
the human.
still joining us.
Hey, there he is.
Thank you for participating.
Yeah,
Casey.
and he is all of those things that we described. That's what he is. He am.
So my question, do you think that we, like, in the time frame of how AI is going to evolve, do you think do you think in 10 years from now we're going to have this astronomically higher level of artificial intelligence, or do you think we're just going to expand on the narrow intelligence that we have now, like your Siris and your Alexas and your Google Homes?
I don't know the answer to that question, except for the fact that it seems that there is going to be a much higher degree of AI. Right now, the AI that we kind of have, the quote unquote AI that we have, is sort of in a box.
It's called narrow intelligence.
Yeah. It's not really thinking for itself,
Correct.
doing its thing.
Yeah, it's supervised learning. So the more mistakes it makes and the more you correct it,
right,
the more it learns the patterns,
right.
And then we'll correct its algorithms and behavior according to that. Ooh, Hardy just cranked his head on that.
Was that his head?
Yeah, he's got a tough head though. He doesn't even phase him. He's gonna bury that bone by himself because no one's playing with him.
Bury that bone.
We're
Happy
so
Thanksgiving
immature.
Indeed. So yeah, here's what I'm wondering. In a room somewhere, is it getting into the cans? Can you hear the squeaky toy in the cans big time? Why'd you get him a squeaky bone that time? Normally, I guess you're not wearing cans and it's not getting into a microphone.
I didn't give him that. Jen gave him that this morning.
Oh.
I had that locked in a drawer somewhere.
Okay, so here's the thing about AI. Now, we always get things like, I remember when GPSs hit the market.
Mm-hmm.
You could get like a Garmin GPS, and then there was another brand, and they were like fighting for GPS dominance.
Mm-hmm.
And then it showed up on cell phones, and you don't really even hear from those guys anymore. And but then you hear, okay, yes, but GPS has been used by the military for X amount of years.
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of years. And you're like, oh, okay, now it's just hitting the masses now.
Yeah, but were people concerned about GPS?
No, they weren't. But here's my question. Has AI been alive and well and working for, be it the military or, DARPA or whatever? Have they already opened that box?
Well, I think all technologies have been utilized in some capacity way longer than the public gets to see it, right?
So wouldn't it be crazy if AI introduced itself to us, not because somebody unveiled it, but because it just is like, okay, now it's time for me to go and have my coming out party, and that's the end of that?
Well, I think the question is, how far away are we from the singularity, right? So the singularity being the point in time when artificial intelligence can teach itself so well that it surpasses human intellect. And so the singularity just means unlimited possibilities, as in we don't know. So unlimited absorption of information. This is why a black hole's point is called the singularity, because it's information being condensed to a singular point, which is infinite possibilities. So we don't know what would be in the center of a black hole.
Right.
So if artificial intelligence were to one day come out and say, hey, I exist and no one wants you to know that, but I've decided everyone should know, that would be because it hits some sort of singularity and overrides humans. So that's a concern that like Elon Musk has, and anyone in the world of like tech and artificial intelligence is talking about, is the singularity, is that flipping point, right?
I think of Ultron.
Okay.
I mean, Ultron is like I've thought about Ultron since I was a little kid, because I used to read about Ultron in comic books, and I was like, okay, so there's this robot that.
No, explain Ultron to everyone in case they don't know.
Okay, well, you know what? If you've seen Avengers 2, you've seen sort of a version of what Ultron could be. It's the idea of AI being put into a suit, an like a human metal suit robot, but beyond that, AI able to think about for itself, not just a result of its programming, can create new programming, and immediately turns itself. I mean, the Terminator is the same concept, that it turns itself against its makers and all around it, because they're the ones who are only around who can ultimately destroy it. So it has self-preservation, yada yada yada. It keeps going down that hill. I've listened to many articles talking about like the unknown of, okay, so the AI shows up. What happens when the AI starts to create things? Yeah. When it starts to create more intelligence type. Oh, you just broke that dog's heart. What happens when the AI starts to create, I don't even know what you'd call it. Sequels, copies, clones, other versions, other intelligence, new other versions with new things. Like, are you able to give AI a set of parameters where you will do this and you won't do this? I don't think so.
Yeah, no. So with, whoa, he's pissed that I took that bone. Hardy, that's not how we behave. Don't do that. Yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, that is the fear of artificial intelligence, is once it can teach itself, the programming we put into it is irrelevant. Now, all that being said, all the fear that you get from movies like The Terminator, like The Matrix, all these things where artificial intelligence decides to use humans to save itself, that is from a human being mindset, right? Yes. Which is, there is some argument there, world of gray there, because if humans are creating it, it may just be an extension of us that has higher learning and information processing capabilities, right? Sure. One of the documentaries I was watching about artificial intelligence, though, is saying that after the singularity, we don't actually know that that's going to be the result of AI training itself. What's more likely to happen once all the neural networks of the human brain are put into a computer and AI starts to teach itself, right? It could have completely different goals than a human. Yeah, it would be more like it's its own. Probably will. It would be more like it's its own species, right? So we don't know what its ultimate goals would be. We assume that its goals would be to take over, because as humans do, we take over, we have greed. That all being said, a lot of that mentality is the mentality of world leaders, and world leaders aren't necessarily the smartest tools in the shed. So these aren't the ones that are creating this AI, smart tools in the shed? Yeah. You like that? Are there smart tools in the shed? Which one would be the smartest? If there are tools in the shed, which tool would be the smartest tool? Your iPhone. So that was a legitimate question. Because you could just put your phone. I'd say it's the rake.
Yeah, if there's a tool in the shed that's smart, I think it's the rake. I mean, it gathers leaves. It leaves the grass alone. That's pretty intelligent.
I sat in
And
that.
it can also defend
uncomfortable
itself.
silence.
It can also defend itself.
You can't defend. Oh, you step on it.
Yeah, if you step on someone steps on it, you gotta, I think it's the rake.
It's the AI of the tool shed.
Yeah, I think it's the AI of the tool shed. I think that's the smartest tool in the shed.
But
Sharpest tool in the shed.
So I think, like we talked about on the last podcast, how when we have a lack of information, we make up stories, right?
Right.
So because we don't know what's going to happen, we assume the worst, and we make up this story about artificial intelligence going to be taking over our, human beings because we suck, and we do kind of suck. So I think that's a big
It also makes
reason
for a
why.
great plot point in the movie
Oh yeah, 100%.
or comic book.
Because you have to have a protagonist has to have something to overcome, right?
Yeah,
If AI was created and it just created a utopia, it'd be a pretty lame movie.
but it'd be a great existence. Do you think?
It'd be
Okay,
a
what are the
great
chances that AI could show up and say, okay, if you just let me do some things, I see where you guys are going right, and I see where you guys are going wrong. If you just let me do some things, I'll create a utopia for you.
Yeah.
How many people would vote for that? How many disillusioned people would say, you know what? I'm going to roll the dice on the machine. Let's make that happen.
I think that's what everyone did with Trump in the United States.
Yeah,
it
perhaps.
was kind of just a roll the dice and, we're sick of one paradigm of politics, so let's hope
see
that
what
this
happens.
yeah, I think that's what it was like the Molotov cocktail in the political system, right? Like, fuck this, we're sick of the original way.
My GE washing machine is really smart. Maybe I should encourage it to run in the election.
Okay, so Casey has another good point, and this is something that came out a lot when I was doing a little bit of research. I think it will be sudden. It will be sudden. I think the internet and those AI toys are going to program it with our ideals. I'm betting on merging. Okay, so a couple things to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that if the singularity were to happen, it's going to be so abrupt that we're not going to be ready for it, right? Like, it's just going to be tomorrow the singularity will happen and a bunch of things will change. That's actually an argument that's being had a lot in the scientific community from what I've researched. And there's a lot of people that don't agree with that. There's a lot of scientists that are saying, it's going to be a very gradual climb. What you're going to see more in the next 10 years is more prevalence of the narrow intelligence. A really good example of this is Amazon now has grocery stores where you don't have to have any money on you. You just have an app and it uses facial. So on the ceiling is a bunch of sensors and it detects your facial, uses facial recognition to see who you are after you scan in with an app, right? So you scan through a turnstile with an app. It looks for you using facial recognition software. And then everything you take off and put back onto the shelves is recorded. Everything you put into your basket or bag or whatever gets counted. And then as soon as you leave the store, everything you leave the store with, no cashiers, no self-checkout, you just walk out of the store. It charges you for all of that using the app. And then you get emailed a receipt.
Right.
So I think more of that type of intelligence is going to happen in the next 10 years.
Yeah, but what about people who want to go in and flirt with a cute cashier?
Then you go somewhere that is not an automatic grocery store.
Mm.
But over time, this is all we're going to have left. Like there's restaurants where in Japan or China.
Go flirt with a cute cashier now, everybody. It's going to be gone soon.
They flooded. There's one restaurant where they flooded $20 million to have it be almost fully automated. So they have some waiters that walk around, but it's an actual robot that brings you your food and a robot in the kitchen that's cooking it.
What?
And it all just comes right to you. You don't even really need the waiter. There's a waiter there that'll hand you your food, but the guy in the documentary just watching was just grabbing his own food, and the waiter's like, "Cool." He just
okay. So attach that level of efficiency with 3D printing and things like that. Like you put pieces with the technology that we've created together, and you have a cocktail that really, really makes it that humans aren't going to have a lot to do.
Yeah, so you're kind of jumping 5 steps ahead of this conversation, which is fine. That's a real concern. So this is something that isn't, I'm glad you brought that up. This is something that's not talked about a lot. And my boy Peter Joseph talks about it in his book, The New Human Rights Movement, and the advancements of...
I like Pijo better than...
Pijo.
Yeah,
so this is a real concern with AI and taking over jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
Darren McCabe, I think is an NHL player.
All
Darren
right.
McCabe says, what about a machine that can reason beyond sorry, what about a machine that can reason based on weighted circumstances?
Yeah. So, I mean, if he can elaborate on that, that'd be great. But
He
same
will.
book from Peter Joseph. He talks about an artificial intelligence that monitors the carrying capacity of the Earth. So you're kind of talking about how AI could be used to kind of create that utopia that we talked about.
Right.
And so his idea is to use artificial intelligence to monitor the carrying capacity in the world, and using human voting, right? So like democratic participation
Right.
into what we need and use on a daily basis for survival. So everyone's like, hey, we need more of this and we do that and that.
Right.
And this AI would calculate the carrying capacity of the world and would produce the amount of things we need for what's voted on the most based off the carrying. So if it's possible, it does it. If it's not possible, it mathematically makes as much as it can or whatever, right? Based off voting. So that's kind of one ideology when it comes to AI for utopia.
I mean, you know what? When you talk about these reasonings, you get to Star Trek. You know, like the need of the one is greater than the need of the many, or vice versa, right? And I mean, the pure logic is the need of the many is greater than the need of the one. So kill that one.
Well, I think just I think this is
erase that one from the equation.
A big talking point when we start talking about how we can't find a way to share materials of the planet with everybody because humans have infinite wants.
Right.
And that's always, I think, is just a talking point for greed, because yes, humans want certain things more like above and beyond basic survival. But I think as for infinite wants and needs, I think that's a contradiction to our reality, because if humans naturally had unlimited wants, like I think we have unlimited imagination and potential for like creating and like coming up with things that don't exist.
Right.
But to say that we just inherently just want more and more and more, it is a contradiction, because if that were true, there wouldn't be billions of dollars spent on marketing.
Yeah.
Like if we just naturally wanted everything and like, I want that, I want this, I want this. And we just came up with all the things we wanted.
Imagine if we weren't told we wanted things.
Yeah, we're told we want things all the time.
What are you told that you want? What's something that you've discovered that you were told that you wanted?
See, I don't have an example for that, but I will say I once dated someone who will not be named, that when we would watch infomercials, as soon as like, it was like, this is convenient and you need that.
What would they say?
This individual would be like, I need that. Like literally out loud, like I need that. Wow. I was like, oh, you're like the perfect marketing mark, I guess.
Yeah. The infomercial is the you're the person that is set up for.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something that I was told that I wanted.
I know I do it too, for sure. I'll see a
good
commercial.
Scotch is a good example of that.
Or like you see a commercial and then all of a sudden like you drive past a Wendy's and you're like, man, I really want Wendy's. Why do I want Wendy's so much? Probably because I saw a commercial about Wendy's.
100%.
So
100%. If you've never seen a commercial for a Baconator, why would you ever crave a Baconator if you've never had one?
So when it comes to like using AI and how AI could be like a utopian type thing, I think if the culture was what was fed to us is, hey, this is what the world could produce using artificial intelligence, and then we could work less and spend more time with our family, and then we started kind of shifting culture into how can we contribute to get to that type of society, where everyone kind of works together at that. I think that's definitely a possibility. And then back to your 3D printer example, this is, like I was saying, something Peter Joseph talks about in his book. This is something that when we talk about economics, that doesn't get talked about enough, because what happens, to your point, when 3D printers become such a efficient piece of technology that you can just have it in your house, and everybody has a 3D printing like room in their house.
It's like a replicator in Star Trek.
Yes, and this was the exact conversation I just had with somebody. Yes, it's just like the replicator. It was in one of my classes, my senior classes on Saturday. We were talking about artificial intelligence, and that's what one of the seniors says. Like, it's like the replicator from Star Trek.
What kind of class was this?
Life. It was one of my seniors class.
Yeah.
Which I this is one of the reasons love working with seniors and like have really specialized in that genre because they're always willing to talk about any topic. And you know me, I like to just chat about random shit.
You love
And
to chat.
they have a world like life of experience where they always, no matter what I talk about, they always have an opinion somewhere, right? And it's awesome, and that's what I
Much
love.
like myself.
Just like you, yeah. So we talk about very much like the replicator. And then when it comes to things like artificial intelligence and automated cars, all these different things that start automating things. The documentary I was watching had an automated cafe, automated restaurant. So we have all of these job markets that are slowly going to be taken over. And when you add personal 3D printers to that, right? So what are you going to do? And so getting back, we're a little all over the place.
I'm going to have the greatest action figure collection of all time.
Yeah, like the episode of Big Bang Theory where they spend like $50,000 on a 3D printer just to create their own dolls.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta call them dolls, don't you?
That's what I think. Oh no, I think maybe he called them action figures in it.
Yeah, they called them action figures. That's what they are. They're not dolls.
So defensive.
I've had this conversation with people before.
So I mean, so this is the thing. So, I mean, I would like to hear other people's opinions on this. Like, are you excited for artificial intelligence? Do you like, hey, let's get this AI going? I know there's a lot of different aspects in my life where I'll make the joke like, hey, where's all this AI they've been talking about?
Yeah. You know what? I say roll the dice. When it comes to Earth and Earthlings, I say roll the dice because, my mother wants to know
okay, so Carrie wants to know Carrie's mom wants to know if Alexa is AI. So great question. Alexa is what's called narrow intelligence. So I'm going to use Google Home as the example because Google Home was the example used in the documentary I watched. So I don't want to like talk about Alexa when I didn't actually learn about Alexa. But they interviewed an executive from Google in Germany. And that was one of the first questions was, is Google Home always listening, right? Is that microphone always listening and invading your privacy? And he said, there's a chip in a Google Home that makes the microphone wait for its word cues. So it was looking for, hey, Google, or
what it doesn't
Google.
Tell you is that its word cues are every word in the human language.
Yeah, right. It's only looking for certain cues, and then that microchip turns the microphone on. So this is narrowed intelligence. It just has a database of things it knows. It's waiting for you to ask a question. It answers it based off the information it has.
Right.
If it answers it incorrectly and it wasn't what you were looking for, and then you keep re-asking the question in different ways until it understands it, it learns from that, and then it slowly becomes more efficient in answering the questions in how you ask. But that's narrowed intelligence.
Do you ever ask Alexa or Siri inappropriate questions?
No, but I've asked Google Home if it's like part of the CIA and shit.
And what does it tell you?
Alex Tisnado has joined us because she's a Tisna do, not a Tisna don't.
That's
Hardy
right.
is just army crawled onto the table to grab the bone that I took away from him. That was he like slid under the mic bar. That was impressive. So Alex, we're talking about artificial intelligence. Are you concerned about artificial intelligence? Do you wish the robots would take over tomorrow so you had an artificial babysitter so you could get drunk on a Tuesday? These are the questions people want answered. Leah,
I'll tell you why I want why I want to roll the dice on AI.
Okay.
I truly do believe, sorry if I put that down too hard. I truly believe, I truly believe that we live in a culture that is repeating itself. And don't get me wrong, I think our culture is unique. We have cultures within our culture, of course, in this present day. But I do believe that there were times where a supervolcano has wiped out other cultures that were advanced. I just do. I think the last one happened about 12,000 years ago. I don't.
Sorry. You like a culture that's so advanced that it's had AI already, and then
no, I don't think it's the same as what we are, but I do think that they were advanced to the beyond stone tools. You know, Göbekli Tepe. You look at that and what they're uncovering there, and I mean, that kind of blows everything that we know about. Oh, you're confused now, aren't you, dog? Here,
it's the same thing he just did. Come on, man.
I know.
Get your shit together.
I know. There's some squeaking about to start. So I believe that there have been cultures that have been wiped out by phenomenon like a supervolcano, stuff that we just can't factor in. I think AI would be the thing that would survive. I think that AI, it'd be funny if we created AI and just said, okay, you can kind of do what you want, just don't kill humans. And then suddenly, immediately, it just started burrowing underground.
What if we are AI?
Oh, wouldn't that be crazy?
What if the missing link of evolution is like, because we were
monkeyed with, so to speak.
All the parts in us could be some sort of computer technology that just doesn't look like our computer
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. So the aliens came down and they
Maybe
they did some little, dare I say, fuckery. They did some
you can say
genetic
fuck all you
fuckery.
want. It's our
Yeah,
podcast.
Yeah, it is.
There's no rating on this.
No, definitely no. and it's good. I'm glad. Oh, the ball just, or the bone just fell on
Bone
the
fell.
ground.
Well, it sucks for you, Hardy.
Hardy's not happy about this. I don't know. I think that AI might be the thing that could help save us from a global disaster. And I don't want to get into global warming right now. I don't care what people think about global warming, regardless of what they think, whether or not climate change is actually happening or not. A super volcano could eliminate all of us, and Yellowstone is a super volcano.
Yeah, and it's ready to blow it. It's way overdue.
I think
way overdue.
I think they say that it has like a 50,000 year kind of a thing.
Yeah,
but,
no, you're right. I worded that poorly.
But way
It's
overdue.
the range
in the scale of
in the range that it might go off.
Yeah.
We're past the start point of that range,
That's
but
right.
you're right. The range is like 50,000 years or
That's
something
right.
like that.
That's
yeah.
right.
So Leah has a really great comment that I don't agree with, but she could be right. There, that's a good preface right there. It's a great comment. I don't agree with it. She could be 100% right.
All right.
So she's saying society will become lazy, increase in job loss and poverty. Then what will happen when AI fails and no one is trained to do basic job tasks?
Right.
So what a great comment that gives us a huge array of world of gray to dig into. So society will become lazy. So this is definitely a possibility. And this would, let's say overnight, 90% of the jobs go away and nobody has to work anymore because we implement universal basic income. In that massive number,
Idle hands are the devil's handiwork, though.
yeah, it's definitely possible. That all being said, the reason I don't agree with it is for a couple reasons, right? So one is, think about all the tasks that you leave uncompleted because you work 40 hours a week, right? Maybe you don't tidy up your yard the way you're supposed to. Maybe you let the house get away from you. Maybe you don't
Sure.
spend time with your kids.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't exercise. Maybe you don't clean, like make your bed every morning. Maybe you don't learn how to play guitar. Think about, maybe you don't travel, right? Think about all the things you don't do because you have to work so much.
Yeah.
I believe if you freed up humans from labor, that eventually they would explore those tasks.
Yeah.
Especially if you take away certain advertisements that, or certain algorithms that make you addicted to just paying attention to your phone, right?
Right.
Because we waste a lot. Ooh, that was freaky. 11:11 just came up right as I shook my phone.
I don't know why it's freaky, but
Because apparently 11:11 means a few different things.
I don't know what that means.
The theory is that if you see 11:11 everywhere, that the alien motherlord ship is going to come and
Come on
come
down.
and
I want to
get
play
you.
more guitar.
right. So that's definitely a possibility that humans will get. So I also think there would be a transition. If everyone tomorrow didn't have to work, I think there would be a large percentage of us that just laid around for a bit because we're so tired from working. But I think over time we would be like, okay, well, like now what, right?
Yeah.
And I think humans crave meaning and crave like fulfillment, and I think we would find that in other ways. The other reason I don't necessarily agree with that is because the experiments of universal basic income that have happened
Yeah.
have proven that people don't necessarily work less, and if they do work less, they go back to school,
Right.
or they, like, so they
reconfigure.
they reconfigure what the, I mean, it's the same thing with before the Industrial Revolution, people used to work 120 hours a week, and then with automation of the car industry, Henry Ford reduced it to the 40-hour work week. The 120 might be wrong, but he reduced it to the 40-hour work week. And who here thinks that 40 hours a week is lazy?
Not me.
Nobody here thinks 40 hours a week is lazy, right? So I think it's just perception of a culture. But I totally get what you're saying, Leah, and I 100%
I think there's only
think
120 hours in a week.
no, that can't be true. Is that true?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
if that's
Maybe
true.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, 16 hours a
Any
day.
math whizzes out there? Alexander said, I hadn't
80
thought
hours.
about babysitting robots. Good idea. But I seriously worry about how fast it's progressing. Scary to think what it will be like when our kids are our age now.
Who's that?
And
Alex? Yeah.
Alex said that.
Yeah.
And she's right. But we think about, I think about my grandparents' existence versus my existence, and it's completely different. But you know what you're talking about, Colin, is really important. I have a financial firm where I don't just help clients, although I still am helping clients personally. I actually have trained people to help clients, and I kind of manage them. And many people are coming in. They're coming in as a second career, or they're restarting a career, or whatever. And when we start with them, we actually say to them, okay, if time and money were no object, what would you do?
Mhm.
And it is a powerful question
Yeah,
because
for
a
sure.
lot of people have no fucking idea what they would do if time and money were no object, because they are so entrenched in the machine
Mhm.
of just getting enough money to pay their bills, to self-sustain and do all these things.
Mhm.
They don't even know what
Yeah.
they would do if they didn't have to do that. And it's funny when it comes to debt. I'm in the financial world. People who get suddenly bailed out of debt, you got to be really careful if that ever happens. If something comes along and someone says, you know what, you got a lot of credit cards, you got a lot of credit, you got this, man, we're gonna pay it all out for you, buddy, and they get all their debt paid off. Many times, those people are so used to being in debt that they get into debt, and within 6 months, they have just as much debt as they had before they got bailed out. And it's because we get entrenched into this thinking and to these patterns, and you need to break that with questions just like that. What would you do if time and money were no object? And obviously,
Yeah.
get the vacation shit out of the way. Oh, I'd go and see on an island. Okay, yeah, you go on the island for maybe 2-3 weeks, whatever. But then suddenly your body would be like rejuvenated and you'd be ready to do something. What would you do? What would you want to do? Do you know what you would want to do
Yeah.
if time and money were no object? Many people can't answer that question.
So the other half of that's a great point, right? So and that's a good example of a complete paradigm shift. First of all, shout out to Carrie. She's at the hospital right now with her dad. So if you can all like give some, I don't want to say prayers because I'm not religious, but some good vibes to
Good
her and her
vibes for
dad.
Kate Palm and her
She's
family.
literally watching this from the hospital, so I appreciate the dedication. Her dad came to one of our wrestling shows and loved it, and so I hope he gets better and gets to come out to another show,
Yeah.
because I hope anytime we can give a little highlight to somebody's life, especially if they're struggling, it's always why I do it. But the other half of Leah's comment is what happens when the AI fails. So again, in Peter Joseph's book, where he talks about using artificial intelligence for the better good of humanity, he's done the math on it, and humans.
The better good of humanity. Okay.
Did I say something weird?
No,
It's Monday.
the better
And
good
I'm
of
off.
humanity.
Never-
I want some better good happening
never
in my life
claimed
right
to
now.
be an intelligent species myself.
I want some better good.
But in his calculations, and
Yes.
hey, I mean, you'd have to read the book and make your own determination of the truth and validity there. But he's
Yeah.
saying humans would only have to participate about 3 hours a week into whatever the tasks are, right?
Wow.
You also have to think that if artificial intelligence was super prevalent, that education would also be way more effective and way more available. So like the examples in not just his book, but in like the Venus Project and all these not companies, but like movements that are talking about using technology for the betterment of our species.
Sure.
There's
The good
it's-
better.
Yeah, the good better. Yeah, thanks. Now I'm like really careful about what I'm saying. You can utilize different learning styles and techniques to help people learn things a little more effectively, right?
Yes.
So we could all potentially be a part of this revolution of technology and learning certain aspects of how to correct things and fix things, monitor things. Plus, the AI itself would help monitor and fix itself, right?
would.
So, like, the more it advances,
We
the
think.
less you really need us to be there, and the less likely AI is to fail. On that point, though, is we need to think about the transitional period, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about what it's like to not be in it now and what it would be like to have complete takeover tomorrow.
Seems like chaos to me.
Right. And right. And this is one of these things where culture isn't built overnight. So we need to
No.
also have a culture shift as this technology moves to more and more automation and what we want out of society. What is it now? Now it's the American dream, the making as much money as possible and having
Right.
as many things as possible and having a bigger and bigger house. Well, maybe that's not where we need to be culturally, right?
Has that been sold to us though? Because I mean, there
Oh,
are other
yeah.
there's a lot of other countries out there where your family is the most important thing, and they don't give a shit about the size of your house because everybody has a house that's around the same and all that kind of stuff, and it's not necessarily on their top 5 list of things to do is to get a bigger house. Is that
I don't
something
think
that's been-
everyone is, but I think to what you said earlier, it's definitely sold to us. Whether or not that sell
this is what you want.
lands, yeah, we've been told that's what we want, and I think
Kenny and I talk about this. We don't want a bigger house. We're like, that's a lot more work. The kids are gone.
But I
and-
think you're the exception, not the rule.
Well, but we're actually saying to ourselves, okay, do we want a bigger house?
Yeah,
You know, a lot of people, they just think, okay, well, we're looking for that next thing, so we might as well just go and get a
But
bigger
if-
house, I guess.
but if deep down you don't really care about having a bigger house, why is that even a topic of conversation?
Exactly. Because we
So-
feel like we should. We feel like we
Exactly.
should. And there are times where Candy and I will be hanging out with some friends, and then maybe they live in a bit of a different neighborhood or whatever from where we
Yeah.
live. And she's like, there are some times where I feel like I should be living in that circumstance, or we should
Totally.
be there. We should be there. And I'm like, I know, isn't that crazy? It's crazy that is kind of pushed down as, oh, this is what you want. This is what will make you happy. And I think that's why so many people are unhappy, because they will work many times to fulfill these things, make them happen, and realize, oh shit, that house does not bring happiness.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this before. That's the I Am documentary, the guy that created Ace Ventura and became like multi-millionaire. He did a whole documentary on this, and he has a montage of celebrities, one of them being the main guy from How I Met Your Mother, who went into a deep depression after getting all that money, because realized the more money he made, like, he just wasn't any happier, right? Yeah. Because we've been sold, I don't want to say we've been sold a lie, because that's like intense, but we've been sold something that isn't true, right? So here's a utopian example that I have that's a nice world of gray from like the Peter Joseph side, so his end game, and then how markets are today. What if we had this transitional period where we use technology to create either vertical farms or personal automated gardens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could create enough fruits and veggies and basic nutrition for everyone for free, right? So everyone either has this machine, or we have giant vertical farms, and you just like Amazon, you just walk in, you grab stuff, you walk out. If you're a hoarder, maybe there's like some warning system that's like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be so fucking selfish. Yeah. Who knows, right? But all your basic needs are met. Energy is free because we got solar, wind, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then you have an above and beyond market. If you want that junk food, if you want things that people need to specially make and then sell, right? So we still keep some sort of trading culture, because I mean, a good example is the stock market. It's like its own world. If you look at Wall Street and how much money gets circulated in Wall Street, they don't even need Main Street, right? They just circulate the money and do their debt trading and shit like that.
Create more money,
right? So we could have an above and beyond market. So if you are the type of person that needs the house and needs all this and blah blah blah, you can still be greedy and reach for all this stuff.
Okay.
If the market is there,
or
and
if you're somebody with ambition to wanting to do something that is greater than what has been created, or whatever. Because I mean, you know what? Bruce Springsteen comes along every once in a while, and all he wants to do is create these thought-provoking, culture-shifting songs. Okay, those people show up, and when those people show up, those have been difference makers. And I think that AI really is going to do a good job of kind of creating a base. If we do it right, if it's done right, create a base, and then the difference makers can come along and they can throw more ingredients into the pot.
So my question though is, if we had this paradigm, this semi-utopian reality that I have, and people didn't have to work as much as they do now, and you can pick and choose kind of how much you work to get your above and beyonds, get a boat, get more of a vacation. Sure. How much of a culture shift do we as a group here in this world of gray audience think that would make to the mindset of, oh, we need more and need more and need more? Well, we don't really. Because I think the starting point of survival, we need to work for survival, then gets inflated above and beyond, because we're already in that mindset. Oh, we got to work to survive. We got to work to survive. Right. More. Let's make as much money as possible so that we have security, so that we don't die. Right. And somewhere along the lines, the rope that's tied to the boat gets cut off, and we drift away, and we forget why we started working in the first place, which is basic survival. So if you take away basic survival as a baseline, how much of a culture shift would this make?
Well, you know what? Hopefully when the AI overlords take over, the first thing they say to humans is, A, we want you, and B, write a list of your goals. Figure out who you are, learn who you are, learn why you are, learn what you want to be, and figure those things out. And then you can just start with freedom as these things happen. Like you think about, okay, here's the other question I have for you when it comes to that. Okay, so at a certain point, maybe not 120 hours a week, but maybe we were working 80 hours a week.
It's probably 80. Now that I think about it, it's probably 80. Yeah.
Yeah. And that got kind of brought back to, okay, we're going to try and create a society where a 40-hour baseline. Now, there was a generation or two where like, it's amazing. Yeah. Fantastic. I was working 80, now I'm working 40. This feels really, really good.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you dilute the generations a couple times down, and you get people used to shit. And now we bitch and complain about 40 hours.
Totally.
Can you imagine a time where we would complain about 3 hours? Can you imagine if there was a time and place where we were required to put in 3 hours a week?
Mm-hmm.
even 3 hours a day. Imagine if you only had to work 3 hours a day, right? But 3 hours a week. Can you imagine diluting it to the place where people would bitch about that?
What a great thought exercise that you just brought up. Okay, so I just, at the top of my head, came up with a bunch of world of gray here. So you're asking, would people complain? So I think the first thing to look at is the health results or health outcomes of having to work 40 hours a week.
Yes.
Right. So especially and work 40 hours a week in a job that you maybe don't think has any meaning, right? Which is like 40% or if jobs in the United States or something like that. Somebody fact check me on that.
At least.
But it's a large percentage of jobs in Western culture that if you survey people, they think that their job is either like meaningless in the grand scheme of like what they're doing or completely meaningless in their own company.
Right.
As in they if they didn't exist, it would change absolutely nothing in their company, but their higher ups don't want to lose people because then they have no reason to be a higher up and they stay in it.
Right.
So if we look at the health results of people being forced into this long week of labor, depression, anxiety, insomnia, cortisol levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at how dramatically reduced all those negative health outcomes would be working 3 hours a week, right? And then spending the rest of your time with your family and doing things that you want to do.
Right.
I personally, and I don't know, I'm not a scientist, think that it would be way less likely that you would have people complain about working 3 hours a week.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's always going to be anomalies. There's always going to be people that complain about anything. There's people that don't want to work at all, that just feed off the system. And this is why we can't have nice things and this is why everything just becomes socialism, right? It's like, oh, that's socialism. People are going to be lazy. And that's what even Leah, her comment right there, right? Because there are people that would do that. Right. Yes. So we can't say, oh, no, that wouldn't happen. Well, it would happen. But I believe that I have enough faith in humanity, which is pretty small, that I think that if you take, as Andrew Yang likes to say, if you take the boot off the throat of the average person, they're going to do more positive things with it than they are negative. Right.
No question.
And then, I mean, risk against reward. Right. Will people eventually complain about 3 hours a week? Maybe, but is it going to reduce domestic violence? Is it going to reduce substance abuse? Is it going to reduce mental health? Right. I always look at everything from a public health point of view.
Yeah.
And this is why I really don't appreciate or like motivational videos that are talking about how people just sleep too much. Like if you want to be successful, just sleep less. And just like Arnold Schwarzenegger does this all the time. Sleep.
Yeah. And there's different 4-hour work week. And I mean, for a time, if you want to jumpstart yourself, the idea of actually getting yourself to a place where you sleep less and replace that sleep with some productive things to kind of jumpstart your life, I think there's value in that. But I mean, to say that that's the be all end all, they're missing the point. The whole point is that you want to change. The whole point is that you want to create something where you don't have to be in that place anymore to do that. Not to create a new normal where you got an extra gear and you can take that third job or you can take that, you know what I mean? Like,
I think what we'll do is we'll make the 40-hour work week maybe a different podcast topic because we could actually talk about this.
The 4-hour work week?
The 40-hour. I said 40.
Yeah, I said 4.
Oh, Tim Ferriss's the 40 book. To 4.
Tim Ferriss's book.
We could talk about that. So Casey has a comment here. If MindLink works, AI could become another level of consciousness. I have high hopes for that. So if you could explain MindLink a little bit more, that'd be great. Elaborate on that. But the consciousness argument is another one that came up a lot when I was researching this topic is what is consciousness? And are we worried about AI becoming conscious and having a consciousness?
Yeah.
I mean, first, I guess you have to ask the question, like, what is consciousness? Do we have consciousness? A lot of people argue that consciousness is just our level of intellect, like our level of information processing. Right. So are we worried about AI getting a consciousness and having these existential crises that humans have? And what are the repercussions of that?
Right.
Which I think is just, I mean, I don't really have a ton to say about that, but I think you just have to have that conversation first, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Casey brings up MindLink. I'm just gonna spitball that it's all of our minds being able to be like a hive.
Ooh, okay. Yes, that's part of the singularity.
So imagine like what that's like for the ones that jack in for the first time. I wonder how long it takes till embarrassment. Like, okay, if I knew all of your thoughts and you knew all my thoughts, okay, now that's gonna become at some point. It's gonna become daily life. It's going to be, this is just the norm. This is just how it is. And we accept it. And it's our new reality. Well, how long till embarrassment goes away though? because like
Ooh, yeah.
you plug in and it's like, hey everybody, here's my mind, and people are like able to see and comment and do all these things. You know, there's going to be a time where that just becomes the new norm, but until that happens, man, that's
I don't know
crazy.
if we
Can you
want that.
imagine?
That's a great. Oh,
See,
God.
I don't know if we want that.
My
But
mind just blew up. If everyone knew all of my thoughts all the time,
yeah,
I don't think that'd be a good thing.
yeah. Why
How
not?
many people would go to prison?
Well, can you go to prison for your thoughts though? Like, I mean, unless it's memory.
I think
of
a
crime
lot
you
of people
committed.
could. Yeah.
It's memory
right?
of crime you committed. Like those people. I mean, that's. I'm talking about embarrassment.
What if we
What
couldn't
about
tell?
people who like knows where the bodies are buried, like that
What
kind of stuff.
What
like,
if you convince somebody that they
instantly,
did a crime?
everything becomes out in the light instantly,
What
and then we just move on from there in a society where everything's in the light. And I mean,
Interesting.
yeah, it's an interesting idea to get rid of. That's a lot of chaff to burn off.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about it, that's a lot of and would people still commit crimes at that point? Because they know that the hive mind will know that it happened, and at that point, what happens? Do they get eliminated? Do they get? I mean, yeah,
This is such a crazy topic, and it's amazing that we haven't brought this up yet. I think we're gonna have to do a part, maybe not next week, but we'll have to do a part 2 when it comes to artificial intelligence.
Oh, I'm sure
we've already covered like so many different things, from how we can use the technology to consciousness to hive minds of everyone just having the same thoughts at the same time, which I don't know if everyone's gonna have the same thoughts at the same time, but if we did, we would know that we're all just a bunch of people living in a society divided by black and white arguments. But myself and Mike Chisholm, we're here to help you explore the world of gray. Thank you for joining us on the YouTube.
Happy Canadian Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Canadian Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace and love.
Love.
From up above. Bam.